They had locked up early. The signs creaked in the wind as Emily noticed them. 7 truckers stranded in a whiteout, no place left to turn. The little diner she and Jack had poured their hearts into was on its last legs. Just a few cans of beans, a crust of bread, and a lukewarm pot of coffee remained. Still, Emily didn't flinch. That night, she swung the door wide and gave what they had. No questions, no doubts. 2 days later, the earth would quake beneath them, and something unexpected would roll up the road. Hi everyone, welcome to Echo Tales. The storm had eaten the freeway. From the front window, Emily could barely make out anything beyond the glass. Snow surged sideways in fierce sheets, warping the glow of the old Jack and Emily's neon sign until it looked like a ghost light drifting through fog. She pulled her cardigan tight, wiped down the counter out of habit, not need. There'd been no business all day. It wasn't just the snowstorm. It was the new bypass cutting through 6 miles west, traffic drying up, debts mounting like the drifts outside. The clock behind the counter ticked past 7. Time to shut down. She reached for the sign, then the bell over the door rang out like a question. A man stumbled in, thick coat powdered with snow, boots tracking slush across scuffed floorboards. He lowered his hood, revealing a face etched by wind and asphalt. His voice cracked the silence. "You still open?" Highway shut down a ways back. Not a place open in sight. Emily glanced behind her, at shelves scraped bare and coffee going cold on the burner. Then she nodded. "Come on in. Warm up." He slid onto a stool, stamping frost from his feet. Name was Mike. Then the door jingled again, and again. One by one, more drivers staggered in, road-weary, frostbitten. Emily's heart clenched. They had almost nothing left. She turned toward the kitchen where Ethan wiped the griddle clean, the slow, practiced rhythm of someone used to dead nights. In the corner, Jack sat quietly, his wheelchair half in shadow, his denim jacket loose around his shoulders. His eyes moved from the door to the growing group, and for a flicker, a breath, Emily saw something she hadn't in years, a spark. Without speaking, she gave Ethan a nod. "Use what we've got," she said. "Nobody freezes tonight." And so the doors stayed open. Coffee poured, plates warmed cold hands. The diner hummed again, alive with bootsteps and voices rising over the wind's wail. Laughter returned like old echoes. Truckers swapped tales like poker hands, a language of call signs and cracked engines. Jack rolled forward from his corner, drawn by the pull of old rhythms. Names floated across the counter. Road stories filled the gaps between hunger and silence. For a little while, the busted register and unpaid bills didn't matter. For one night, the future didn't exist, only the now, the warmth, the way a worn-out place could still beat with life. Emily stood behind the counter, watching it all, apron in hand, heart full and aching. She turned to the window, snow swirling like secrets outside. She stared into the blizzard. Something stirred in her chest, a quiet wondering. Not quite hope, not quite fear. Could anything truly survive a season like this? She didn't know. Not yet. Her hand brushed the frame of the door, wood-worn smooth by years of opening and closing. Behind her, laughter rang out again, softer now. The windows were thick with frost. The snow kept falling. Somewhere out there, change was rumbling, and in just 2 days, it would arrive with shaking ground and roaring steel. But tonight, they were just people holding on, together. Emily breathed deep. She could wait for the answer. Before the silence and splintered dreams, Jack Thompson was a name spoken on crackling radios from coast to coast. He wasn't the biggest voice or the boldest, But when winter swallowed the road and loneliness filled the cab, it was Jack's calm drawl cutting through static that held people steady. "Hang tight, mile marker 142. I'm coming." That was Jack. He lived for the open road. His truck wasn't just steel, it was sanctuary. That's what Emily remembered as the snow kept falling and the storm roared louder. That voice, that man, the one who never left anyone stranded. The endless miles had strung his years together, steady and familiar, a rhythm he trusted more than his own pulse. Emily loved him for that wild spirit, for how deeply he belonged to something vast and unwritten. She loved the gleam in his eyes when he spoke of desert sunsets, of friends known only by call signs, of the quiet that settled during the foggy dawn drives. They made their home between mileposts and taillights, stitched from fleeting returns and long, aching departures. But then one day, the wheels stopped. Jack never explained. Something about brakes, a turn too sharp. The world he knew crumpled in an instant. He woke up in the hospital missing more than a limb. The part of him that sang to the road, that looked at horizons like promises, was gone too. What came home was a quieter man. He spent his days by the window, watching traffic ghost past on highways he no longer traveled. His hands gripped the arms of the wheelchair like he was still bracing for the crash. And Emily stayed. She cooked, she cleaned, she bore the weight of a heartbreak that didn't shout but whispered, day after day, until even silence cut deep. Then, one morning, she placed 2 coffee mugs on the chipped kitchen table and said, "If the road won't carry you, maybe we build something that will." By afternoon, they had signed the lease on a crumbling diner just off Route 66. It smelled of dust and faded dreams, but to Emily, it smelled like beginnings. Jack and Emily's truck stop opened quietly, with hardly $1 to spare. But word got around. Drivers began showing up. Coffee steamed. Stories passed across the counter like old songs. Photos collected on the walls. Ball caps. Sharpie names bleeding into wood grain. Jack found a different pace. He leaned into conversations, mended broken radios and tail lights. He became something else, a lighthouse for lost rigs on lonely roads. It wasn't the same life, but it mattered. It was enough, until the road veered. 6 miles west, the new highway swept the trucks away like a current. The parking lot, once alive with engines and laughter, went quiet. Tables emptied. Coffee sat untouched. Jack drifted back to the window seat, eyes scanning for trucks that never came. Emily fought harder, smiling bigger, slipping unpaid bills between menus no one touched. But not all battles make noise when they're lost. Some dreams just dissolve, slow and silent, like breath against cold glass. Now, tonight, the storm clawed at the windows. Jack sat still, his fingers tracing the table's wood grain. Emily wiped the counter again, not knowing what else to do. Ethan lingered near the kitchen, moving just to stay busy, trying not to notice how the place was splitting at the seams. Hope was still there, but not like fire, not even flame, just a stubborn ember, flickering against the chill. And Emily, she wouldn't let it die. By 8 o'clock, the diner brimmed with life again. The same booths that had sat empty for weeks now pulsed with warmth, layers of coats, wet boots, the low murmur of men shaking off the cold. The heaters sputtered, but held. Fog clung to the windows. Emily moved quickly between tables, Ethan close behind, balancing dishes piled with whatever scraps they could gather. Eggs, grilled bread, soup from the last pot. The pantry was bare before the storm even let up, but no one seemed to care. They laughed, joked, dipped torn hamburger buns into the broth. Mike held court at the counter, fingers curled around a chipped mug, his voice rising in slow, tired stories that drew chuckles from the crowd. Jack watched from his corner. At first, he said nothing, but as plates clattered, as coffee warmed frozen hands, as voices layered over each other like music, something shifted. Then one man, thick beard caked with frost, leaned forward and pointed a gloved finger. "You," he said, squinting through the glow of the diner lights. "Ain't you C.B. King?" The name cracked through the chatter like thunder. Heads turned. Jack froze, mid-breath. Emily's hands stilled, the rag hanging forgotten. The bearded man grinned wide, laughter spilling out of him like spring water breaking ice. "Knew it. Jack Thompson, right? You saved my hide in the '98 return pass blizzard. Thought I was done for till your voice came through clear as day." A wave of recognition swept the room. "Kansas, black ice, wasn't for you, I'd still be frozen to that guardrail," another said. "C.B. King, that's what we called you." Jack hadn't strung together a full sentence to a stranger in months, but now he smiled. A deep, real smile, the kind that wrinkled the corners of his tired eyes. Emily saw it and felt something loosen in her chest. "You boys remember more than I do," Jack said, his voice rough but lit with warmth. Laughter rolled out, slow and wide, as tales came to life. Jackknifes, late-night breakdowns, and ghostly roads lit only by Jack's voice guiding them home. Behind the counter, Emily wrapped both hands around the coffee pot. She watched Jack come alive, piece by piece, like a song finding its rhythm again. She didn't speak, didn't trust her voice to hold steady. She just kept pouring, wiped her sleeve across her cheek, and let the warmth of the moment settle in, like sunrise. But the night had one more twist left. The walls groaned. A tremor moved through the floor. Then silence. No hum from the heaters, just the sharp bite of cold, rushing in. Mike moved fast, boots squeaking across wet tile. He knelt by the old furnace, muttering as he vanished behind the kitchen. Emily hugged her arms to her chest, breath catching not just from the cold. They were running out of food, of warmth, of time. She met Ethan's gaze across the room, saw the flicker of fear in his eyes, and gave him a quiet nod. Calm on the outside, fraying inside. 10 minutes passed before Mike emerged, streaked with soot and snowmelt, wiping his hands on his jeans. "She'll hold," he said, flashing a crooked grin. "For now." Emily exhaled, long and low. It wasn't a fix, but it was something. A pause in the unraveling. But the food, they were out. No more eggs, no more soup. Emily slipped through the back door into their small house, her breath misting in the cold. She rummaged through the pantry, grabbed whatever was left, a couple cans of beans, a sack of potatoes, 2 frozen meatloaves meant for her and Jack. She carried it all back, through the storm-chilled hallway, set it beside the stove, and wordlessly began cooking again. No one said anything, but faces changed, rough features softened, postures eased. There are debts that can't be paid with bills, only with dignity. No one left that night. Tables were pushed together, coats turned into pillows, jackets layered like patchwork blankets. Emily dug through the supply closet and found a few forgotten quilts. She handed them out quietly, like secrets. Voices fell low, laughter warm but subdued, woven through with the smell of burnt coffee and road dust. Mike fiddled with the old radio by the till until it crackled to life, playing worn country ballads that drifted like smoke. Jack rolled out from the shadows and into the light, swapping stories, giving tips, letting time peel back its wear. A young driver sat cross-legged on the linoleum, listening wide-eyed to a tale of blizzards, mountains, and a truck stitched together with duct tape and desperation. For those few hours, the storm didn't exist. The diner, worn, weary, was a beacon again, a safe harbor for tired souls who'd forgotten how badly they needed one. Because out on the road and in life, you don't really meet strangers, just fellow wanderers moving in the same storm. That night, no matter what howled at the walls, Jack and Emily's place held strong. The fire burned. The people stayed. The wind could scream and the snow could rise, but inside, warmth grew from something deeper than fuel. 2 days later, the snow had hardened into deep drifts. The roads were mostly cleared now. Trucks rumbled again, on the new highway, far beyond sight or sound. The hum passed their corner by, like a dream fading on, waking. Inside, Jack wiped down the counter in slow, steady circles, cloth sliding across old wood. Emily swept by the door, broom whispering on tile, her thoughts far away, on bills, on memories, on the for sale sign she still hadn't brought herself to take down. Leaning awkwardly against the fence out back, the night of the blizzard felt unreal now, something too warm, too full of light to have survived the cold glare of morning. The coffee pot sputtered half-heartedly, the clock ticked, the world kept turning. Then came a sound, low at first, a rumble like distant thunder rolling across dry land. Emily paused, her broom still in hand. Jack lifted his head from the counter, eyes narrowing. The sound grew louder, closer, until it became unmistakable. The hiss of air brakes, the deep-throated growl of diesel engines, the crunch of tires over snowpack. Emily dropped the broom. Outside, through the fogged-up windows, one rig appeared. Then another, and another. In minutes, the lot was full. A procession of trucks stretched down the old road, chrome gleaming in the pale winter sun, like a caravan returned from exile. The front door swung open. Mike stood there, bundled in layers, his grin wide and weathered. "Hope you've got more coffee on," he called, voice echoing into the stunned quiet. Behind him, drivers poured out, some familiar, some strangers, all drawn here by a voice passed along the CB waves like gospel. The diner filled with boots, with laughter, with life. Mike reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, thick and worn. He placed it in Emily's hands. "We passed the hat," he said. "Truckers, dispatchers, some of the old radio crowd, even a few companies pitched in." Emily stared at the envelope, heavy with hope she hadn't dared let herself name. "It's enough," Mike added, voice gentler now. "Enough to clear the bank. Keep the lights on. Start again if you want." Her hands trembled as she took it. Before she could find words, another driver stepped forward, older, with a grey beard and a battered CB mic in hand. "I think this belongs to you," he said. He placed it on the counter. Jack reached out slowly, brushing his fingers over the scarred plastic like it might vanish. "Had that since '92, the man said. "You gave it to me when mine fried out in a snowstorm. Figured it's time it came home." Jack's throat worked silently. A nod, small, fierce. Emily felt something shift inside her, something cracking, something healing. Mike laughed, slapped the counter. "Words out. Every driver from here to the Rockies knows about Jack and Emily's. You're not getting rid of us that easy." Laughter bloomed through the diner, loud and bright. Ethan peeked from the kitchen, wide-eyed at the crowd. Outside, the for sale sign leaned forgotten against the fence, snow drifting up around it. Inside, Jack turned the old CB mic in his hands, the weight of it grounding him. Emily watched the light return to his face, Not all at once, but steady. Hope wasn't fire or flash. It was voices finding their way back. It was open doors in a world full of closed ones. It was the quiet, stubborn belief that kindness still mattered. And in Jack's eyes, Emily saw it again. That thing she'd almost lost the strength to believe in. Not just survival. Life. Real, messy, beautiful life. And this time, they wouldn't be standing alone. 1 year later, Jack and Emily's truck stop was alive again. The parking lot overflowed with rigs from every corner of the country, their chrome shining under the high Oklahoma sun. Inside, the diner buzzed, boots stomping, coffee pouring, laughter bouncing off the worn wooden beams like it had never stopped. On the far wall hung a framed photograph. "Heard this place is kind of legendary," someone said. Emily smiled, setting down a fresh mug. "First cup's on the house," she said, "and so's a story, if you're staying long enough to hear one." Outside, trucks came and went. Inside, stories began again, stitched together by shared roads, lost nights, and second chances. Emily wiped her hands on her apron and leaned against the counter for a moment, letting the hum of life wrap around her. And in that golden warmth, she could almost feel Jack beside her, not as a shadow, not as memory, but as something real, still watching the door, still welcoming the road, still here, always here.